Hey guys, welcome to Inside the Tank Live. I'm Jay Massey, your host, obviously, and we're just going to review what just happened on the tonight's Shark Tank episode. Well, if you were watching like I was watching, you saw Mark Cuban spend a ton of money today. That's basically the Bank of Cuban was literally open all night long. So that I thought was absolutely interesting and definitely fun. We had the 4 different products. We've got the meats, the lights, and we've got what I thought was actually a very neat product. And then the last one of the night, the lingerie. So we're going to talk about all 4 of those quickly, and we're going to be ripping apart how the deals went, trying to understand why certain decisions were made, which ones weren't, what would I have done, and most importantly, if you were the Sharks, what would you have done as well? So let's get started. We'll talk with Echo Valley Meats. First of all, this particular gentleman came back. So let's just start and talk about that. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you come back. You don't quit. It's one of the things that I think characterizes all of the best entrepreneurs is that you're willing to continue with the vision. And that's the thing. Feedback is what he received the first time. Information, it wasn't exactly positive. Let me check my notes real fast to make sure, because I know I wrote a number of things down. Let me see. Because I had written, yes, perseverance. It took perseverance. It took humility. He was received tough questions, right, that he didn't know the answer to. And he was quote unquote found out on national television that he didn't have them, but he was willing to take them as learning lessons and still went after it. Oftentimes when you're in a deal and you don't get the outcome you expected, we end up calling that a failure, or I didn't win, or I lost, or I'm a loser. Learning is earning, and that's exactly what we just saw here. And because he went back and he got a better team around himself, he came back stronger than ever. I mean, he was lickety split sharp ready. He was just like, here's the number and here it is, and I know what you're going to ask me and I know why. Here is the information, and it was rather impressive if you ask me. So just something to keep about. Now, as we always do, we want to make sure that the math is understood by all. So we had today, he was asking $150,000 for 20%. So again, here's the math just so that we can all do it. So it's $150,000. We're just going to, again, divide by that 20%, which means he's asking for $750,000, a $750,000 valuation on this business. So if you have $750,000, he's saying you can buy the whole thing if he was actually willing to sell it. So $750,000 is what he was asking for. Product details, Echo Valley Meats, they specialize in meats, and he added the mail order again, listening to the information, the feedback that he gave or that he received the last time he was there. So deal specifics, last year sales 190,000, this year 1.4. That's called a clue specifically. So he was intending of selling the mail order business only. And he went from the cost of customer acquisition started at $12, $1 to maintain. This is good numbers for you to know. You're like, hey, what does it cost to obtain a customer? It's definitely a conversation that you should have for all of your businesses, and definitely in real estate as well. On 1.8 million, he had a $400,000 profit, or at least that was the projected number.
I think so.
Yeah, that was the projected number, if I remember correctly, right? And then he was using the money very smartly. I don't know if you were concerned, but it hit me when he was like, yeah, I'm going to buy my ham for Thanksgiving after Easter. That sounded weird to me because I'm like, how long does that stuff really last? I thought it was kind of fresher than that. That did not make me really feel that good about ham. That I'm going to think twice now. That Christmas ham could have been from, well, last Christmas is basically what he said, because he said the FDA said no longer than a year, right? So you buy the Christmas ham on December 26th and you're still good. That's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem for me. But okay, he knows his business and he knows when the time is to strike. You know when to buy that inventory. He obviously had a plan in place, and man, that was very disturbing for me, just so you know. Just think about it in and of itself. All right, let's move on before we get the rest of you disturbed as well. So he had a number of offers. Cuban was at 150 for 25 because all he was after, he was trying to give him what he asked for, but he saw an opportunity and wanted the option for the other 25, which made sense at the same valuation. Damon, no offer. Lori, no offer. Robert was at 300 for 35, but he wanted a piece of the whole thing. And Kevin started that whole trend with the 150 for 17 and a half at the same valuation, but he wanted the whole thing. And the interesting thing is again, for I think this is the second week in a row where we've seen Mark Cuban do this, where he listened to what the entrepreneur wanted and found a way to give him what he wanted. He wasn't coming there to sell the whole business. He was just saying, here, this is the part I am willing to part with. This is what I'm willing to part with. This is what I'd like to keep. And Mark, again, listened and made an offer based upon that. But let's look at the difference, though, because this literally is what happened. He said 150,000 for 25%. So you've got to ask yourself, he went from $700 down to $600,000. So in a matter of seconds, there was, quote unquote, went $100,000. 150,000. Was it? Oh, that's right, 150,000. You're right. $150,000. So the question is would you place $150,000 value at minimum on what Mark has to share with you? I think a lot of us actually, did I do that right? It was 120. It was 150 for 25%. I was like, I did it right? Yeah. I just want to make sure. Yeah. I did. Okay. My brain is, yeah. Okay. Perfect. So he put the valuation there, and you've got to ask yourself, because you've got that lickety split decision. I mean, this happens all the time, especially in real estate investing. You've got to make that decision. Sometimes you don't get the opportunity to come back again. And that's exactly what Mark said. He's like, look, I got to know now. And I think because he went back and he actually understood his numbers and what he wanted, that's why Mark ended up winning. One, because he was listening, and two, the entrepreneur was clear. And we'll see clarity later, especially with one of the other offers tonight as well, with an option for the other 25%. Again, Kevin, it's not, again, understand, it's not that he wasn't willing to part with the rest of the business. I think Kevin and Robert weren't even in the game because of how they asked. It's not, because they ended up, if you look at what Mark actually got, he ended up getting kind of what the other two wanted, but he got it in a way by asking for it, by listening first and putting it in that, and putting it in a fashion that made it palatable to the person willing to sell. So oftentimes it's not what you're asking for, it's a lot of how you're asking for it, and I think that's why Mark particularly got this particular deal. So what would I have offered? First of all, I love these prepackaged meats things. This is one of the few times, like I know a lot of my attorneys and whatnot, when during the Christmas season, holiday season, they always send me wine. I wish I could send them all a blanket note. I'm like, guys, I have never drank in my entire life. Can you just send me the meat stuff? That would be great. Because that would be awesome. But what would I have offered for this particular business? Again, you guys know how I feel about product businesses that have manufacturing and all that other stuff. So in my world, this is a non-starter because it's not exactly something I would be looking for. Would I have taken the offer? I definitely would have. Who wouldn't want to work with Mark? Is there a reason not to? Of course not. Would I have made a counter offer? Possibly. I would have at least taken a stab. It's one of the things that when negotiating, is just take a stab. You never know. Hey, let's just find out. Because that nagging question always sits in the back of my head is, what if he would have taken 22.5%? Now, yeah, you can argue it wasn't worth it, but I've got to fight for every dollar, feed me and mine, and so does he. And that's kind of the thing that I would look at. What would I have done different? I got to applaud. What was his name? Was Dave. Dave, good job. Not that you need any congratulations from me, but excellent job going out there, taking the input, because many people, they crater on input, and you got to ask yourself if that's what you would have done. What questions would I have asked? I thought in my head 18.3% seemed a little low on 1.4 million or 1.8 million. I'm like, but again, I don't understand the operational expenses, and that's what that really tells me, is that he's got a host of operational expenses, probably plant and fixtures and equipment that just is outside my realm of expertise, which is again back to why I wouldn't have actually offered on this one. But what questions were answered poorly? None. He came back ready to rock. All right, so let me check the chat room, see who's here, see what you guys have to say. Let's see. Did I log back in right? Okay, just making sure. Excellent. So it looks like we've got Mike and Sandra and Sep, and you guys are here watching. Excellent. Feel free to type in any sort of questions that you might have. What we're going to do is get over to one of my favorite deals of the night. Oh, I already said Mark got that one, right? Yeah. All right. So let's go over to the next one. Amazing Lights. Interesting name, I thought, for sure. 650,000 for 5%. I'm like, wow, that's okay. So we're starting off huge, but the gloves clearly seem to have an appeal to people that, you know, who are out there. So it's awesome. Patent pending, a sport of gloving. Now, you want to talk about a way to sell your product? How about you invent an entire sport and then you make sure that there's an association, you sponsor it. That's gutsy, and it's clearly working. His costs were low, to say the least, and I think that's just a very smart business person right there in the making, as we just saw. So 4-year gross, $13 million. That's called a lot of customers, a lot of change right there. Sales this year, very, very strong. And you got to understand, this guy is really thinking big in every way possible, between changing industries and adding sports and adding a whole new line that's already grossing millions of dollars. 90% online. That's kind of impressive to me for sure. Just now getting into retail and licensing, and he knows that he needed help. That's what he was very, very clear about. I don't know if you heard that. I heard it. He wanted help, and that's what he showed up for. That's what he ended up with. But let's look at the offers that were made. He originally, I think the first offer was from Mr. Wonderful, wasn't it? Yeah, because he wanted a $650,000 loan for 3% equity. Notice how he didn't say, I wanted interest on the loan. So in lieu of interest, he said equity, and that was 3%, which was quickly declined. So the question you have to ask yourself is, would you have been able to quickly decline that? And if so, why? And I'll tell you why I think he was able to do so in a second. Then Damon came in with 650 at 20% and wanted to, he wanted 20% of the licensing only, no equity. So Damon's like, look, you're clearly doing what you're doing. Let me do my part and just add to this, fuel to the fire, so to speak, and do my own thing over here. And then what happened next was interesting, was Lori and Robert said, hey, let's throw some real money at you, so to speak, and give you $1 million for 8%. So let's go back and look at a couple of things. We normally do, he said 650,000, and he was willing to give up 5%. And did I do that right? Did I have too many? I'm like, that didn't look right. I had too many zeros for 5%. There we go. So there's the $13 million that they started out with, and we're used to seeing these numbers now. And then they said $1 million for 8% originally. Almost did 1 divided by 8. They said, no, we were going to knock off $500,000, which isn't too far off from what he was asking for, but they said equity is what they were talking about. And then, so the offers, and then what happened, if I remember correctly, and I thought this was interesting. I don't know if you guys saw this. I wonder if seating arrangement is like planned ahead of time, because Mark and Damon always sit next to each other, and Lori and Robert always sit next to each other. I wonder in this particular instance, if Lori had been sitting next to Mark and Damon had been sitting next to Robert, what would have happened? Because in this instance, it seemed to have a huge difference. Like, do they say, hey, if I'm going to do business, I'm most likely to do business with this person, so let me sit next to them? It just seemed that way to me. It was very, very interesting. And then it got a little wild and crazy, so to speak. Mark said, hey, cool. Now it's me and Damon for the 650 and 20% of licensing. And then Lori and Robert said, okay, well, if they're going to do that, we're going to do the same $1 million, but now for 5%, bumping their previous $12.5 million up to $20 million, going, all right, let's see what he really, really wants. This becomes the test. So you got to ask yourself this question: 20 million or 13? Now, both sound great, right? Both sound great. The difference, though, is $7 million, right? Many people spend many $1 bills every week trying to win $7 million in a lottery. He did it with $100 and a whole lot of ingenuity, blood, sweat, and tears, and learning new skill sets. Okay, it's one of the best ways to grow equity and go out there. If you want to win the lottery, start a business. Best way to go. You have to ask yourself, between Robert and Lori and Mark and Damon, is Mark and Damon worth $7 million? What they know. He said, absolutely, and I agree. I remember right when they went to commercial break, I was like, this is a no-brainer. You're going for Mark and Damon because Mark and Damon have the intellectual capital, the structure, and they're the business brain you came for, buddy. So you definitely should take those. It's not always about the money. Keep that in mind. So what would I have offered? No reason to not give him what he wanted because that's exactly what he asked for. He was asking for a brain. Would I have taken? I would have taken the same offer. Would I have made a counter? No need to, because I wasn't giving up anything more than what I had asked for. In this particular case. And how would I have done it differently? I can't say that I would have done it differently, but what questions would I have asked? I would want to really understand this whole gloving thing. That was a little bit like how is that executed? I don't even know where that happens personally, but I would want to understood the customer a little bit more. Because that's the thing. This is only riding on the customer. Who is that customer? Specifically demographics, age. Obviously, they're overseas. Overseas being outside the U.S. for us. So all of those things are things that I begin to wonder about. How do you actually grow? How do you grow a sport from nothing? That's kind of interesting to me. So all of those things were definitely something that went through my head. As far as questions that were answered poorly, I didn't note any in particular. I think it was very transparent and very real, and I think that worked to his favor to see that, hey, look, this is the part I need help with. I don't know what I don't know. You guys do, so help me. Also, I said earlier, how did he quickly be able to say no to the $650,000? Here's $650,000. Someone's writing you a check, exactly what he asked for. He said no to that with the absolute quickness. It's because he was clear. I've said it before, I say again, clarity leads to power to do two things, and those two things are to decide and act. He was able to decide and act hyper quick because he knew exactly what he wanted. I even think he knew who he wanted on his team, and that put him in a position to be able to decide lickety-split. He didn't really have to think about it per se, and it was very, very easy. So let's check in to see what you guys are saying. It says, what was Echo Valley Meat's unique value proposition? What did they do different from the competition? I don't know that they may not have done many things different from the competition, and sometimes you don't have to be different. Now, they just have to be, they could have a higher profit margin. They could definitely, clearly, they had, there's enough room in the marketplace. Typically in any marketplace, or you've got room for 2, maybe 3 top-tier competitors. So if I say Coke, some of you are automatically thinking Pepsi, and you understand that those 2 are, quote-unquote, at the top. Now, there's a third, but that third is usually so far behind they just don't count. The point is, you typically have room for multiples of those. Somebody's got to be number 2. And I don't know who that is in his particular industry, so you don't necessarily have to have too unique of a value proposition. You just got to be 10% better, and 10% better could totally be in taste, especially as a company is small and growing. That boutique, smaller, homegrown, they know me feeling, people will pay a premium for that, and if they're paying a premium for that, that means he's earning more money, and you can, quote unquote, afford to stay small because you don't need everybody in order to make that happen. So I didn't see anything different than, what does he do that's different? It sounds like, if anything, he was beginning to model his company after Omaha and trying to keep up with them, which, okay, completely fine. Well, I can clearly say this, Omaha's been around so long that obviously people know their name, but now he just got in front of, 7 million viewers? I don't know how many people watch the show, but it's a lot of you, right? And what's that? Twice. Right. So yeah, he's been there twice. So 7 million. He probably got a bump of orders last time, but now I bet you he gets an even bigger bump than he got last time, simply because he got a deal. So it's like, yeah, it's gonna go well for him, I'm sure. So sometimes, again, you don't have to focus on being too unique. You just got to be, a little bit better. You got Nike and who would you say? Reebok, Asics, Adidas. All of these companies are up there, so to speak. There's lots of room at the top. The competition is all at the bottom. So just keep that in mind as you go out there to do your own things.
Hey, Jay, so
yeah.
I had a question about the amazing lights. So,
Okay.
do you think that the facial expression of the person pitching it made a difference on the sharks kind of fighting over it? Because I was watching, and I saw him like literally rub his hands and smile when Lori and Robert were offering him the $1 million, and he got really excited.
Sure.
And that's when Mark started talking to Damon, and they came up with their deal to combine together.
Right.
Because he was like, "Oh, I get 2 sharks, and I get this," and he was literally like, you should see his face. Like, he had no poker face whatsoever. He's laying all his cards out, and I think that actually helped him to get a better deal in this one because they all wanted a piece of this one.
Right. Yeah, he was very genuine, very transparent. I have that same problem. My wife says oftentimes, you're quiet, but your face is speaking very loudly. So I have that. Did it help him? I think it helped him get what he wanted. I think he knew what he wanted, but at the same time, if someone's offering you $1 million, wouldn't you smile a little bit? I mean, just a little.
Well, I mean, I would try to do my best poker face.
I'm sure he was trying, but it's $1 million.
I mean, he's seen that money before. It's not $1 million to him. He's made $13 million. It's not like it's a lot of money when you've had a business.
Still $1 million.
For 4 years.
It's still $1 million.
You know, it is national TV. And
it's still $1 million. I don't care what you say. It's $1 million. That's a lot of Benjamins.
He's probably already a millionaire.
Yeah, I understand. I get it. But it's still $1 million. You still get it. Hey, you know, a kid had candy before. They get excited again.
That's why you got to learn how to play poker, Jay.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I'll leave that to you. It's all good. That's for sure. Let's see what you guys say, if anything. Good point with the poker face, Jacob. Of course you would agree with Jacob. That's fine. And that's why, I will say this. I did play a house game, and I did win. Just so you know, it was a house tournament. I did win. It was only $125 for me to win, but that's all right. I won. That's the only thing that matters.
Good job.
But it wasn't $1 million because I probably would have been smiling. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's see, what is this? Aquavault. Now, this was I call this the interesting product of the night. If there's an award for interesting product of the night, I think this is it. Now, I should preface this by saying I don't know how to swim, and I really don't go to pools. And yeah, I always want my stuff with me too. Anyway, I'm usually the guy that's watching the towels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in this particular case, I like the idea because now I don't have to watch the towels. And if I want to go to the bathroom, I don't have to worry about your stuff. So I think this was a great idea, obviously, being featured on today's show, all those things. I just think these guys they don't have a salesperson in them, and that's the problem. They don't have a salesperson. They had a great idea. They were trying to find another way, someone else to sell for them, i.e. through the hotels, but they're just not a salesperson. That was their challenge. That's why they only had 87,000 sales. I'm sure they had a ton of sales just now. And going on HSN and then, here's a hint, by the way. If you have something that you didn't do well, don't bring it up. Hey, we were on HSN. Oh, really? I don't know if you saw that. Right? Lori's like, oh, cool. Tell me about how that went. And I'm like, 200. You didn't sell out. That's not good. Don't bring it up. Okay. So that did not help them. They don't have a salesperson. They need sales infrastructure. That's literally what I saw that this business died from. Neat product. Obviously, that's right. Some people didn't get a chance to make an offer on this one. Is that what it was? It was one of those answer me now, right?
Yeah,
Damon. Yeah. And I thought it was pretty funny. I don't know if you guys saw this. Well, obviously, Robert was first in. He was like, yeah, I'm in. But they didn't have clarity. Because they didn't have clarity, they were like, hey, what's going on? But always remember this. When you're out there doing your deals, you're dealing with two emotions simultaneously all the time, fear and greed. You deal with fear typically on the buying side. It happens all the time, especially if I'm selling a property, I can tell when the person's afraid. And I get that. They try to rationalize their fear with fine-sounding arguments, but at the end of the day, you're afraid. And I get that. There's nothing wrong with that. On the other side, when you're selling, you're dealing with greed, usually. It's like, cool, I don't want to give up more than I have to, and I want to get as much for every percent of equity, every percent of rent, or every whatever it is you're doing. is you want to get as much as you possibly can for it, which again, totally makes sense. I find it completely ironic that even after all the questions, Robert goes out, Damon comes right back in at the second time. They got bailed out, in my opinion, because you don't always get that opportunity to just go, okay, cool, I'll take that one. And I think that was more of a knee-jerk reaction. And to use a poker term, they were playing on tilt at that moment. They were like, we could end up with nothing, so I'll take that because that's better than nothing. And I think that's really what happened. And Damon was definitely like, look, let's get this done. Because I'm sure he saw easy pass to quick money, especially on a return on something for as small as $75,000. So let's run the numbers real fast just so that everybody's on the same page. The $75,000 for 12%, they were asking for $625, but that got slashed a little bit, so it was kind of a fire sale, so to speak. It got down to $300,000. So what they were asking for, they got a half off sale in this particular case with Damon. I think somebody should have bought it. I definitely would have been in on this particular one. I probably would have asked for something closer to 40% because we've got to do the sales infrastructure. We've got to build this sucker to make this thing really, really sing and work because we haven't even begun to hit scale of profitability. There's so much more things that have to happen. But the challenge is that there was 3 of them, and they probably each have an ownership interest of some kind. That doesn't resemble the need for 40%, and that the issue is probably on their cap table or capitalization table is the ownership percentage, trying to figure out who would actually still have control in that particular sense. Anyway, so what would I have offered? Like I said, 75 for 40% definitely was kind of in my wheelhouse. Would I have taken any other offer? Well, yeah, if I needed the sales help, I would have taken it. I think. I do think, though, I would have waited to hear what Mark had to say on this particular one, because that's the whole thing. As far as the counteroffer goes, they didn't have a sale. They didn't have sales in their body at all. Maybe something around 20% just to see, again, is what I would have gone for. How would I have done it differently? As I said, I would have waited for Mark because he's the salesperson as far as I'm concerned of all of them that are up there. They all sell, don't get me wrong, but I see Mark as the salesperson. He gets sales. Maybe Barbara would have been, the other salesperson per se. And as far as what questions were answered poorly, anything that had to do with numbers, and clearly you guys heard it too. If you have a weakness, you don't volunteer. Hey, we were on HSN. You knew that you did not sell through. Don't bring it up, okay? Let's see what you guys had to say about this one. Don't Apple and Nintendo do that? Create product buzz. Yes, exactly. You're understanding. You got to have. So we're going back a bit, but yes, you got to have the two products juxtaposed. I mean, the good needs an evil. Evil isn't evil unless there's a good to contrast with. You gotta have both. There's always room for the two. Would you recommend they try to keep a lower inventory before going on HSN so that they could intentionally sell out? Yes, Seth, makes perfect sense. Go for the intentional sellout if you can. However, I've never been on HSN. They probably had a minimum quantity that they had to put up just in case. And who knows, how that particular decision was made. But again, they don't have a salesperson at all. So, and that was their challenge, because that salesperson would have thought that through, going, hey, it's probably going to be better publicity that we sell through and sell out, and see if they could have negotiated to make sure that happened as opposed to not. So those things are definitely true.
Hey, Jay, so one of the things that I noticed, actually 2 things, was when you got the first offer, coming back to the faces, one guy had this good, I can't believe he offered me, yes, please take, I want to take this offer. And the other guy was like, well, that's a little rich. And so they obviously talked, but not all of them had the same.
No, they weren't on the same page.
On the same page. And then secondly, we talked about this last week, but they weren't quiet. So they answered
right.
too quickly and too often and talked too much, which made them lose deals.
They're not.
I mean, even Mr. Wonderful said that exact thing.
They're not salespeople, and they were inexperienced. They know how to make a product, but they don't know how to sell and negotiate. It was just obvious. And yes, and now they've got that problem fixed now, because that's what, was it Damon? Damon got this one, right?
Yeah.
So, yep, Damon got this one. So look, if you're paying attention, tonight it was Mark, then Mark and then Damon. It's like the Bank of Mark and Damon was open. That's it. Only one side of the room was fed so far. The other sharks went home hungry. Oh, well. So let's keep talking about, let me just check to make sure, see if there's anything else in the chat room. Who's that off screen? That's Jacob, Susan. He's over there running the cameras, also occasionally asking questions, monitoring chat room, making sure that we go back and forth. Yes, we've toyed with the idea of having a studio audience, but not yet. Anyway, how did she say this? Naya? Was that how it said? Naya. So we're talking a lingerie brand. They're trying to compete with the big dogs. Now, first of all, I didn't know lingerie was a $14 billion industry. That's billion with a B, and that's a whole lot of zeros. So she walks in, and now, again, on a night like tonight, it seemed feasible that $500,000 at 5%. For the $10 million valuation, especially after the lights, maybe. I was thinking, okay, maybe there's something here. It wasn't an instant no because, hey, they just did a $13 million one. What's wrong with the $10 million one? Let's see. It's a big money night. And then she opened her mouth. So, 145,000 in sales in 5.5 months. Again, I'm like, okay, you just underwhelmed me in ways that I can't even begin to explain. And then 2-year projection of 14 million. I'm just like, how? And then on an average order size of $80 with the repeat customers of 14%. And that may be good for the industry, but it wasn't good enough. I definitely like her margins though. $60, 72% margin. That's strong. That's strong. That's all I can say is that's just strong. So, and having the previous raise at $850 for $5 million sounds great. Seems like she would have been a little bit more conservative, or somewhere near that number. Anything at the end of the day. This one was hard one for me. It's just sometimes you shouldn't be. There are sometimes, like with an audiobook, the author decides to read the book and shouldn't. She was the one who should not have made bring someone else to do this because you're not the one that should have been, talking. So, it was definitely interesting to me. As you saw, no offer. Then Kevin said, hey, I'll give you $500 for half. She's like, which, granted, she would obviously had a seriously down round, and if she had accepted that, so that would have been very, very tough to sell. But at the same time, I think she could have gotten Damon she just could have if her valuations were a little bit better in line, and more importantly, she was a different person. I think she lost the deal. I think her product was probably great. At least that's what Damon said. He'd never seen designs like that. She's probably going to experience a lot of sales, but I don't know if she's going to hit that 14 million. Because that's a whole lot of underwear, in my opinion, at that particular time. So, let's see. Oh, I didn't know if you caught this. What Kevin O'Leary said, I thought it was awesome. He said, an MBA is not a prerequisite for success in business. I'm like, yeah, awesome. Way to go. Way to shout out, because we're the college dropouts over here. That's right. I got the PhD, public high school diploma, and that made me feel very, very good. And then again, I don't know if you heard what Lori was talking about. She's like, dude, sell something. Sell a lot of somethings before you come in here asking for $10 million. Sell. Not project into the future. This gets me to that whole point about business plans. Business plans are at best a guess of what you think might happen with the person who you think is the customer and what you're guessing they might pay. And all of it changes the moment you ask them to actually buy. So it's like, dude, this we don't really know, but we've put it on paper. We don't really know though. And she's getting the feedback. Let's see if she makes the corrections like the first guy did tonight and comes back later with different offers, different attitude, and has the ability to make and come out maybe with a different result. So what would I have offered? Nothing. Again, we've got the whole product thing going on, retail stores, distribution, manufacturing, stuff I don't like. Would I have taken the offer? I would have, you know what I would have done? I would have gone for 49% with Kevin if I had to. If I was going to have to take something, I would have counted at a 49% with Kevin because I think she needed the help and just didn't realize it and drinking her own Kool-Aid a little bit much right now. So that also covers what I had made the counter offer. What questions would I have asked? Lori was actually asking the questions like, how did you get to the $14 million? Do you and then Robert said, do you have a clue of what it takes to go from where you are to there? Like, hello, what are you smoking? Is there someone on the team? Those are, real, very valid questions. And I didn't, clearly, if you ask what questions were answered poorly, there was no real answer to those. She couldn't say, well, I've got so-and-so here who's done that before and this person who's done that before, and here's my team who's going to help us get there, which then became, it's all about you. You've not done this. How are you going to do it? Remember, if you're going to build a business, it's not about you. It's about the team that's behind you, working with you, struggling along with you, sacrificing their time to go out there and make your vision happen. So you got to have them with you when in critical moments like this as well. So, see what you guys had to say. Jacob, they want you in front of the camera. Good luck with that. You can barely find a picture of the man anywhere. So, yes, but that's a whole different story. So, let's see what we got. Where are we here? Awesome. The best offer of the night, clearly. I like the, I just really I'm in love with the first guy, Dave. He came back. He persevered. Those character traits of perseverance, humility, willing to take the input and come back, and he was willing to listen to the tough questions and make the corrections. Those are the things that I'll bet on those all day long. Worst name for a product of the night. I actually didn't like the E-mazing light. I'm like, really? Okay, that seemed pretty bad. Worst deal of the night. Well, I think her deal was great, but she already had it messed up. Because of her in and of itself, and I think she'll make the changes and the corrections, especially now that all of her friends saw her on TV. She'll have lots of reasons to make these corrections, even though she still may get a bump in sales. Got it. If this is your first time watching, make sure you hit the subscribe so that way you can watch again when we come back, so that you get the opportunity to see this when we do it again. Obviously, after every new first run episode, you'll have the opportunity to make that happen. Let's see. I guess that's basically about the time that we have for right now. So I do my best to educate, to entertain, to have fun. Just remember, when you're out there building your business, he or she who educates dominates their particular market or niche. And if you have a desire to begin to raise capital in any way, shape, or form, or want to learn some of the tools and techniques that are available to you that we make available for free, there's definitely a link just below this particular video that will take you over to a page where I make a free guide and video training available so that you too can go out there and begin to raise your capital and start asking investors for the equity that you need to go out there and make your vision come true. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.